Chris Godinez, licensed professional counselor, also the host of We Need to Talk on every Sunday at noon, and then I post these videos up whenever I have time and think about it. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions stated herein are mine and mine alone. They do not represent the ACA, APA, or any other therapist for that matter. Boom, shakalaka done. I'd like to thank my sponsor, BetterHelp, BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/Chris Godinez. They're an online therapy company. They are international. They have 40,000 therapists working for them. So just go to betterhelp.com/Chris Godinez, fill out a questionnaire, and they will set you up with a licensed professional, master's level, or PhD level therapist in your state. All right, cool beans. Hi, everybody. Okay, today is lots and lots of stuff. So current events, I just haven't had a chance to look at stuff, but lots of stuff going on. The LA fires, things like that. So yeah, basically I want everyone to have a go bag. I really do. If you're in an abusive relationship, that's my current event. If you're in an abusive relationship, or if you're in an area of the country or the world that has natural disasters, it's always a good idea to have a go bag, which means you have first aid stuff in there. You have important documents in there. If you have pets, you have stuff for your pet. You have, things like that. So it's a really, really, really good idea to have a go bag, no matter where you are. So just in case you need to bug out, if there's a fire, if there's an earthquake, if there's a tornado, if there's a hurricane, lots of stuff. Or if you're in an abusive relationship, get a go bag together, store it over at a trusted friend's or at your work where they cannot find it. So that is my current event for the day. All right, so let's dive into this whole topic about the criminal mind of dark triad. So what is a dark triad? I know we're going to be doing a little bit of review, but it's going to be good. So a dark triad is a narcissist, psychopath, also called antisocial or sociopath, and Machiavellianism, which is control freak. Okay, they have to control everything. So that is what a dark triad is. Now let's go into detail. Machiavellianism. A lot of people have questions about that. What does that mean? Machiavellianism, and this is on Psychology Today, is a personality trait characterized by manipulativeness, which kind of sounds like narcissism and/or antisocial. Deceitfulness, sounds familiar. High levels of self-interest, also sounds familiar. A tendency to see other people as a means to an end or as an object. Who does that sound like? People who display especially elevated levels of Machiavellianism, referred by some psychologists as high max, lack empathy, which is a trait across the board for Machiavellianism, antisocial, narcissism. Okay. They take a cynical, unemotional view of the world. Their primary interest centers on power and status, and they'll do whatever is necessary to achieve their goals. They're cutthroat. They will throw their grandmother under the bus if it suits them. The trait was named for Niccolò Machiavelli, a 16th century author and political philosopher who argued in his works, like The Prince, that kings and other rulers should do whatever is necessary to seize and maintain their power. Today, some evidence suggests that people high in Machiavellianism are more likely to pursue high-powered careers such as politics or law. What a surprise. Machiavellianism, along with narcissism and psychopathy, make up a collection of unpleasant and closely related personality traits known as the dark triad. What makes somebody Machiavellianism? A trait of Machiavellianism was first conceptualized by psychologists Richard Christie and Florence Gaius in the 1960s. According to the construct they developed in subsequent research on the trait, someone who is high in Machiavellianism is likely to consider their own goals and interests to be more important than that of others, which relates to narcissism, place particularly high importance on power, status, fame, or money, which also relates to narcissism, be willing to lie, manipulate, and exploit others for their own gain, which also relates to narcissism, have a cynical, negative view of the world or of other people's motivations. In other words, they're paranoid. They assume everyone is doing whatever they're doing as a personal affront to them, and there's a motive, and that because that's how they think. Okay, they feel zero empathy for others, or little empathy, I would say zero. Display little emotion or feel largely disconnected from their own feelings. They wouldn't recognize an emotion if it walked up and did the Watusi with them. You know what I'm saying. While someone high in Machiavellianism is often confident in social situations and can be charming, which is also a psychopath and or antisocial trait, and also a narcissistic trait, many will largely avoid close interpersonal attachments because they view them through a negative, distrustful lens that renders them less satisfying. Okay. Is Machiavellianism the same as psychopathy? They are generally thought to be distinct from each other, though they share many similarities. While both psychopaths and Machiavellians can be callous and use others for their own gain, Machiavellians tend to be more motivated by fame, status, and power than psychopaths. Psychopathy is also linked to impulsivity and aggression, traits that are not often seen in pure Machiavellianism. In other words, Machiavellians are very calculating. They're dangerous because they're calculating. They're not impulsive. They're not like a crime of passion. They're calculating. It is important to note, however, that the traits can coexist. And what's more, some researchers do argue that they are, in fact, one in the same trait. Needs to be more research done on this. What is the connection between Machiavellianism and narcissism? Both can display a lack of empathy and consider themselves superior to others. Narcissists tend to be motivated by a need for admiration, while high Macs tend to be motivated for a desire for power. Although I would argue that the narcissists I've had to deal with were more interested in power and control. So I think they need to do more research on that. Machiavellians also have a higher tendency to engage in long-term strategizing to achieve their goals. Again, they're calculating. As with other dark traits, it is possible for somebody to display high levels of both narcissism and Machiavellianism. Okay. How do you spot a Machiavellian personality? They have a lot less tendency to be grandiose or impulsive, so they're a little more covert. There are some behavioral clues that do give them away, like a tendency to tell white lies when it benefits them, or a desire to get close to people of high social status, and a negative, cynical outlook that assumes everyone will lie, everyone will cheat, or everyone will steal to get ahead. Narcissists also do that. Can you outsmart a Machiavellian? Yeah, you can, but it's not worth your time because it's a game to them. It's a game. And they enjoy the challenge of pulling the wool over your eye. So you just want to get the frick away from them. Is it possible for someone to become less Machiavellian by their nature? By their very nature, most people who are high in dark triad traits are unlikely to want to change. So there that is. That is Machiavellianism. All right, so very quickly, we're going to go over this, and then we're going to talk about the criminal mind of a dark triad. So let's start with antisocial personality disorder, shall we? All right, so antisocial, which used to be psychopathy and sociopath and all of that stuff, they've now changed it to antisocial personality disorder. Which does not mean they don't like to socialize. That drives me crazy when people do that. When they're like, oh, antisocial means I don't like to socialize. No. Antisocial means the rules of society do not apply to you. You think you're above them. That makes you antisocial. Does that make sense? So it usually starts with conduct disorder, oppositional defiance disorder, and then it moves on into antisocial personality disorder as the crimes get worse and worse and worse against society. All right, a pervasive pattern of disregard for and violation of the rights of others occurring since age 15 and is indicated by 3 or more of the following. Failure to conform to social norms with respect to lawful behaviors, as indicated by repeatedly performing acts that are grounds for arrest. Deceitfulness, as indicated by repeated lying, use of aliases, or conning others for personal profit or pleasure. Impulsivity, or failure to plan ahead. Irritability and aggressiveness, as indicated by repeated physical fights or assaults. Reckless disregard for the safety of self or others. They will engage in dangerous behavior that could hurt them just for the adrenaline high. That is a common thing throughout incarcerated antisocial population, is that they are adrenaline junkies. They get bored very easily, and they want the high of the adrenaline. Consistent irresponsibility, as indicated by repeated failure to sustain consistent work behavior or to honor financial obligations. Repeatedly screwing people out of money, repeatedly filing for bankruptcy. I mean, repeatedly, like a ridiculous amount of times, like more than once. Let's see. Lack of remorse, as indicated by being indifferent to or rationalizing having hurt, mistreated, or stolen from another. But let me be very clear about this. They rationalize only after they get caught. Prior to being caught, prior to being in the law system, doesn't even enter their minds that they might have done something bad. Okay. The individual is at least 18 years old. There is evidence of conduct disorder with onset before the age of 15 years. The occurrence of antisocial behavior is not exclusively during the course of schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. Okay, so that is antisocial personality disorder. If you guys have questions, feel free to put them into the chat, and I will answer them at the end of it. So, okay, narcissistic personality disorder. Okay, so this is all the triad. This is Machiavellianism, this is antisocial, and now we're going into narcissistic. A pervasive pattern of grandiosity in fantasy or behavior. Need for admiration, constantly needs to be told that they're fabulous and amazing and unique and this, that, and the other thing. A lack of empathy beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts as indicated by 5 or more of the following. You only need 5. I've dealt with ones that were all 9. All right. Has a grandiose sense of self-importance, exaggerates achievements and talents, expects to be recognized as superior without commiserate achievements, is preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love, believes that he or she is unique and special and can only be understood by or should associate with other high special class of people or institutions, requires excessive admiration. Like you cannot tell them enough that they're fabulous. It's like literally, it's like every second of every waking minute, you have to be telling them that. Has a sense of entitlement and unreasonable expectations of favorable treatment or automatic compliant with his or her expectations. So, for example, like a narcissist will make a reservation and demand the best table and then show up 2 hours late and expect to get that table and then pitch a fit when they don't. That's entitled. Okay. Is interpersonally exploitive, takes advantage of others to achieve his or her ends. Lacks empathy, again, is unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others, is often envious of others or believes that others are envious of him or her, shows arrogant, haughty behaviors and attitudes. So that's a narcissist. Now, all dark triads are narcissists, but not all narcissists are dark triads. Just like all prunes are plums, but not all plums are prunes. All pickles are cucumbers, but not all cucumbers are pickles. Does that make sense? So that is something to keep in mind. However, a lot of these traits, because remember, everything is on a spectrum, a lot of these traits start overlapping, okay, as you move further and further down the malignancy line. So if it's traits of, they've got a few of them, maybe not 5, maybe they've got 2 or 3. Okay, maybe they don't have some of the antisocial stuff going on, but as they move further and further down the line and they become more and more malignant, the antisocial stuff is going to kick in. You betcha. And the Machiavellianism as well. So it all starts kind of overlapping. So yes, you can have multiple personality stuff going on at the same time. Yay. Okay, so now this book, Inside the Criminal Mind by Stanton E. Samnow, PhD. Love it. Oh my God. I love abnormal psychology. I really do, because it helps my clients. So we've been dealing with the denial issue, where people are like, oh, they would never. Yeah, mother clucker, they would. Don't you kid yourself. That is going to get you killed. Okay. Stop thinking that they're not going to do, oh, that's not in their character. And this is something he goes over again and again and again. There is no such thing as an out of character crime. Dun, dun, dun. Read this book. It is so fascinating. Now, what I particularly liked is that he talks about narcissists in here. Oh, please tell me I found it. There we go. Okay. This is on page 21. Are people who victimize others but never come to the attention of law enforcement criminals? And his answer to that is yes. Yes, they are. because they have the criminal thinking, which is what we're going to talk about after I read this particular part. Okay. Diagnostic labels change in the mental field, but human nature remains the same. The terms psychopath, sociopath, and currently antisocial personality disorder are often used interchangeably, although psychopath and sociopath are no longer used by the mental health diagnoses. According to the most recent DSM-5 Diagnostic Statistical Manual, a person with antisocial personality disorder demonstrates a pervasive pattern of disregard for and violation of the rights of others. Such individuals are impulsive, reckless, aggressive, and without remorse. Clearly, they are criminals, but some have a superficial manner that enables them to charm their victims and dupe law enforcements and mental health professionals, as do narcissists. Okay. Some people inflict widespread injury but do not break the law. They too are criminals. They just haven't gotten caught yet. Men and women who have narcissistic personality disorder manipulate and exploit people to shore up what is already an inflated self-image. Their contempt and impatience adversely affects people, especially those closest to them. The DSM-5 cites their unceasing need for admiration, their exploitive nature, and their lack of empathy. Spouses, children, and work colleagues are ground down daily as they try to satisfy the narcissist's insatiable psychological needs. Even strangers have unpleasant encounters with them. A waiter, salesperson, or receptionist may become the target for their disdain, condescension, or contempt. Thank you, Lucky. A psychologist described his narcissistic client as follows. This is a man who is used to doing what he wants regardless of someone else's opinion or the impact of his behavior on others. He goes for the jugular. He needs to be in control of all situations. Now that's Machiavellianism, and will often do what he wants in blatant disregard of rules, antisocial, others' perceptions, and the impact of his behavior. He challenges, threatens, or cajoles to achieve his ends. Intimidation, that's something that narcissists do. Never underestimate the damage such a person does. A narcissist is a criminal who continually harms people and believes that he or she has the impunity to do so. The word criminal elicits strong emotional responses. It is essential that the reader understand that I am not using criminal in just a legal context. My emphasis is on the thinking process. So that is what we're going to be talking about. So narcissists, yes, narcissists do have a pattern of punishing people. Absolutely. They are predictable. That is the one saving grace that the rest of us get to benefit from, is that they are predictable. I can tell you exactly how they're going to behave. And it's so funny to me when I have clients that are going through one of these horrific divorces and custody battles with these jackwagons. And they're like, how did you know? How did you know? And I'm like, you follow the patterns. You look and see the past is prologue. You look to see what they've done, and you look to see how malignant they are. And then you can pretty much go, this is exactly the route they're going to take. All right. So errors in thinking. So this is what I love about this. Lying. It's like the criminal mind lies. Show me a narcissist. If their lips are moving, they're lying. They're either lying by omission, which they love to do, or they are outright making stuff up. Okay. Victim stance. Now, this is mostly done by the covert dogs. Mostly done. Lucky. Oh, it's Amazon. Well, that explains it. Mostly done by the covert narcissists. And they play the victim. Now, what a grandiose narcissist will do, you got to realize, when a grandiose narcissist, hold please, hold on, dogs are barking at Amazon guy. Guys! At least nobody will sneak up on us. So when, I'm sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. Okay. Narcissist lying. What was I going with that? Victim stance. Thank you. Okay. Victim stance. It is, they will flip from grandiose to covert. So in other words, they will do whatever they need to get out of trouble. basically. So they'll go from, oh, yeah, I'm the greatest, I'm the greatest, I'm the greatest, to wasn't my fault. I didn't do it. That's not me. Everyone's against me. Everyone's going to try to hurt me. Everyone, they play the victim. Okay. That's just what they do. Healthy, normal people don't do that. When somebody is healthy and normal and they are told they've done something wrong, usually we feel a huge sense of guilt or remorse or shame, remorse being the key term, and we do something to make amends. Narcissists will never do that. I don't know if you ever watched I loved UK Ghosts. But in one of the final episodes, Julian had to apologize and he couldn't. He just couldn't do it. And I was just like, oh, that's probably why you're still stuck on this plane of existence. But it's like they can't. They don't want to. They don't want to. And that is what I love about this book is he talks in here about how it is a choice. And it absolutely is because he's done this for years and years and years and years and years. And he's interviewed thousands of criminals in jails and done thousands of evaluations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And basically, the criminals are all able to stop lying when they needed to and stop doing the things that are getting them in trouble when they needed to. They don't want to. Does that make sense? So victim stance, they play the victim. There is a quest for power. They must be in charge. This is all criminal thinking. This is not normal thinking. This is abnormal thinking. Healthy, normal people don't need to lie all the time. We don't. Because here's the thing. If you're lying all the time, you're going to have to try to figure out that spider web. What did you lie about? And who did you tell this to so you can remember it so that you don't trip yourself up, right? Abusers don't ever think like that. They think they've got this. What is this? What is the word I'm looking for? Because they've done this basically their entire lives. His basic thing is it starts in childhood. And I agree. And it's not because of the parents. It does seem to have a very strong connection to genetic issues going on because you can have a family where, the parents raised all of them the same. The rest of the kids are law-abiding citizens. And you got one that's just out there that cannot stay out of trouble. What the hell? So fascinating to me. Anyway, so they have a pattern of doing little things and eventually it starts becoming bigger things and they get arrogant because they've gotten away with it in the past. And because of their sense of entitlement and because of their lying and because of the way their brain thinks, they assume that they are always going to continue to get away with it. So, okay, a quest for power. So they love power. They will do whatever they need to stay in power. That is of utmost importance to them. They don't like being told what to do. This is why they get diagnosed with conduct disorder or oppositional defiance disorder, because they don't like being told what to do, even if it's in their best interest. I mean, this is the crazy thing. If you tell somebody with, and this is an exaggeration, but I want to give you an example. If you tell somebody with oppositional defiance disorder, hey, if you put your hand on a hot stove, it's going to burn you. Please don't do that. They'll look right at you and put their hand on the hot stove and keep it on there as long as they can, just to do the, screw you to you. Because don't you tell me what to do. That's literally how these crazies think. Okay. They'll hurt themselves to prove that they're in control. It's kind of like Lao Tzu, Art of War. He talks about how dictators will burn down a society to rule over the ashes. Even though it's hurting them, they would rather be the ruler. Yeah, what's the old saying? I'd rather rule in hell than bend my knee in heaven. That's kind of their attitude. They stupid, like 3 O's, stupid. And they don't care who they hurt to get that power. All right, lack of a concept of injury to others. They have no remorse, none. Zip, zero, zilch, nada. Now, can they pretend to have emotions? Oh, you bet. I have seen psychopaths pretend to have emotions. Never reaches their eyes. Never does. The soul, the windows are the soul, the eyes are the windows to the soul. And you can really see a lot in a person's eyes. I have seen psychopaths pretend to cry, no tears. No tears, okay, and no remorse, no sense of, oh my God, I harmed this person, I'm mortified, I am so sorry. What can I do to make amends? No, usually what they do is, well, they brought it on themselves. They got robbed because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. How is that the victim's fault? Do you see where I'm going with that? So they will never take responsibility. They lack emotions. They can pretend to have them. They can display them appropriately when needed if there is enough of the, I would say, Machiavellianism in there. Okay. If they're antisocial and they have that impulse issue, then probably not. But if they're really Machiavellian, yeah, they can display the correct emotions at the correct time. So yeah, they don't understand hurting someone. And something he says in this book that just, oh man, resonated so much with all of the absolute jerks, male and female, that I've had to, deal with in my practice, helping people get away from abusers, is that a narcissist said to him, and it's in one of these chapters, I can't remember which one, but he said to them, he said, all of my therapists keep pushing for me to have remorse and empathy. Well, what's in it for me? I'm sorry. What? That is them in a nutshell. What's in it for me? If they're not going to directly benefit, and they can't get it through their head that being remorseful and being human does benefit you. Hello? They don't get it because there's no payoff. There's no adrenaline rush. There's no money. There's no power. There's no, in fact, what they think, and and he quotes them in this book, Inside the Criminal Mind. Whoops, where am I going? There we are. Stanton E. Sandell, buy it, read it. Fascinating book. He says several times that unless there is a payoff, they won't commit a crime. So like if the risks outweigh the payoff, they won't do it. So that's a choice. Okay. They're choosing. So they don't understand. They see emotions as weak. They do, because they exploit other people's emotions. If somebody loves them, oh my God, they will just crowbar that to their advantage, especially a kid with a parent. Parents are terrified of their child going off course and terrified of their kid, harming themselves or whatever. And so that sociopath, that antisocial, that narcissist, that criminal mind will play on the parents' emotions so that the parents do whatever they want because they threaten to harm themselves or harm them or harm somebody else. So they view emotions as a weakness. They view responsibility as a sucker's game. Seriously, they say that in this book, he quotes people. They view behaving responsibly as boring. They've got a real issue with being bored. And that's a lot of times when they go out and start committing violent crimes, because it releases adrenalines, dopamine, serotonins, norepinephrines, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And at least for a little while, they are high on that. And that is the thing about dark triads, is that if they're Machiavellianism, they absolutely plan things out and they start getting high off of the planning. Like a drug addict that passes out before they actually push the needle in because they're anticipating the high. That literally happens with heroin addicts and other addicts that use intravenous drugs. It's like they're so excited by using the drugs, they'll pass out because their brain's already released all the endorphins, dopamine, serotonins, norepinephrines. So yeah, they start getting high, planning what they're going to do to their target of abuse. They are not innocent. They cannot be helped. I cannot push that enough. I'm getting sick and tired of these apologists who've probably never been abused by one of these jackwagons going, oh, but we can help them. We just need to love them into, oh, go blow it out your ear. No, you don't. No, they can't. No, they won't. It is a choice. They choose. They know right from wrong. Now, the only instance I would say of a criminal not really understanding right from wrong is if they have schizophrenia, okay? Because in schizophrenia, you've got Satan on one side, God on the other, screaming at each other, and then you've got somebody in front of you trying to give you direction. You can't literally. If you want to know what being schizophrenic is kind of like, You have a friend in one ear just say nothing but good things, okay? And then the friend in the other ear be nothing but damning and nasty and mean as loud as they can. And then somebody stand in front of you and give you directions for you to do. Okay. That is the only time I would accept the criminal defense of insanity. That's it. If it's just narcissism and antisocial, they know. They absolutely know. They do not care that they are hurting someone. It doesn't make sense to them because, well, that person was in my way. How dare they? It's their fault. They were in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's scary. They suffer from a sense of uniqueness. In their minds, they've never done a wrong thing ever. And they are put upon and they are victimized by their parents for trying to control them. Gee, maybe you should go to school and finish your homework assignments. They view authority figures as threats, 110%, that need to be fought against. They're unique. Well, these rules don't apply to me. I don't need to obey by them. That's stupid. That's literally how they think. Their thinking is just this weird flaw in thinking. Okay, sense of uniqueness. They think that they're better than everybody else, 110%. Pretensions and a sense of ownership. So once they get into a relationship, they own you. You're not a person with free will. You're an object that they own. That literally is the way. Your bank account is their bank account. Your house is their house. Your job, money that you get from your job, that's theirs. That is literally how they think. They do not have the ability, or they don't want to go, that's yours, this is mine. Because to them, they own everything. Again, it's that sense of uniqueness. It's that I'm better than everyone. I'm more important than everyone. Only my wants and needs are important, nobody else's. They have no concept of obligation. So they're only too happy to have multiple baby mamas, have tons of kids, and have no plan on raising those kids. Not their problem. You know why? Because their attitude is, well, I didn't wear a condom because I need to feel. Seriously, that is what they say. And the other thing they will say too is, well, it's their fault. It's their fault they got pregnant. They're jerks. They're absolute jerks. And they refuse to help the kids. They refuse to raise it, which good, because you don't want your kid raised by a dark triad. They are unwilling to hold a job because why should they work? Why should they? Why should I work? I'm special. I don't need to work. I don't need to contribute to society. What has society done for me lately? They need to help me. That's literally their attitude. They have no accountability, no sense of obligation, no sense of loyalty. Let's be very clear. They will turn on anybody in a dime if it suits their ego and if it suits their long-term game and if it suits whatever nefarious plot they've got going. Okay. This is why I'm saying, guys, stop giving them slack. Stop saying, oh, they would never. Yeah, they would. Yeah, they would. There are no out of character crimes. They've just been able to hide who they really are really well. So when they do something heinous, that's who they are. What makes you think they're not going to do something else heinous? Okay. They are dangerous. I cannot stress this enough. Okay, hold on. Shifting mental states. Criminals are inconsistent in thought and behavior. They can be helpful and hateful to the same person within minutes, depending on what they need. So that's why people get confused because they're like, oh, but this person is so kind and da 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 to other people, maybe outside of the family. But if they're inside of the family, they're completely different. It's just like my dad. My dad was a pillar of the community, right? Went to church 6 times a week, mainly because I think he knew he was going to hell, but that's okay. The point being, though, is that everybody on the outside was like, oh, he's so kind. He's so wonderful. I'm like, you didn't live with him. You didn't see and hear and experience what I did. So, yeah, they do that. And that's why flying monkeys, and that's also why targets of abuse don't get believed, because the dark triad, being Machiavellianism enough and antisocial enough, is able to charm, and narcissistic enough, is able to charm people they need to. And it's intentional. You betcha. Um, the attitude shifts according to the mood, unrelated to the reality of the situation. They feel like they're dealing with different people because they are so volatile. And it's true. It's like when you're dealing with a dark triad, it's almost like they've got multiple personalities, but it's not multiple personalities. It's the original personality, and the rest of it's manipulation. So, yeah. They pursue conquests that bolster their view of themselves. Their conduct appears capricious and unstable. Their point of view changes for no apparent reason. Some criminals attend church, synagogue, or mosque. Their religious observance involves specific rituals, but seldom translates into how they live. They may pray at 10 o'clock and snatch a purse later that day, or go home and scream at the kids. Yeah, you betcha. They shut off the fear of consequences. So they're so goal-oriented that all they care about is getting that fix, getting that whatever little nefarious plan they're planning, that they shut off the fear of any consequence. I'm not going to get caught. I'm smarter than the cops. I'm smarter than the DA. I'm smarter than the judge, blah, 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 blah. That's what they do. And so they shut off that fear. To acknowledge fear is to appear lame, sissy, or weak. So they think fear makes them weak. The criminal harbors contempt for people who are fearful. In a predatory radar-like fashion, he or she can detect when others are afraid and then move in to take advantage. That's why I tell people all the time, take self-defense classes, learn how to carry yourself in public. I don't get messed with because I basically walk through life with an attitude of you mess with me and it's going to be really bad for you. Because I don't like to be messed with, because I was messed with when I was a kid. So, self-defense classes are great. Knowing how to take out an aggressor and that's going to harm you, and you can do it without weapons, that's fantastic. Wing Chun Kung Fu is fantastic. Self-defense courses are fantastic. Learn how to carry yourself as if you own that street. Seriously. And that seriously is the difference. And he talks about that in here, is that almost always crimes of opportunity were perpetrated against either elderly or someone who appeared fearful. Or do you see where I'm going with that? It's like if you walk like you own it, they're not going to mess with you. You're not an easy target. And it's the same goes for dealing with an abuser in a divorce case. You cannot be fearful. You've got to be balls to the walls. Screw you. I'm protecting the kids. This is how it's going to go down, and do your worst, coward. Because they are. They're cowards. They're absolute cowards, but that doesn't mean you don't take precautions. Carry pepper spray. Do a self-defense class. Make sure your locks are good. Have Ring cameras, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. They are fearful of being put down. Ego wounding is terrifying to them. So basically, criticism, they hate criticism. They will view that as a personal attack. They're hypersensitive to put downs. They absolutely, if their self-image is threatened, they can become dangerous. Absolutely. But a lot of times when somebody really sees them for what they are, they back off because they don't want to keep hearing it. So it depends. It depends on the criminal. Zero state thinking. Criminals think in extremes. All, nothing, good, bad, black, white. There's no in between thinking with them. So you're either with them or against them. They are either great or they're nothing. So a so-called vulnerable narcissist, which bull tinky, they just happen to have ego injury and they're having to rebuild from that. Will do the whole, I'm worthless, I'm this, I'm that. And they may go seek counseling when they're at their low point, or when the judge has forced them to go to counseling. They'll go for 1, 2, maybe 3 times. And as soon as the counselor starts holding them accountable, they'll they'll peace out and they'll say the counselor is worthless. They're, blah, 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 blah. They don't know what they're doing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because they don't want to deal with themselves. So all nothing thinking, that's very dangerous. Let's see, what's the other? Okay, that's it. That's it for those criminal thinkings. You will have noticed and probably recognized your abuser in all of those. So that's why I say you cannot underestimate a malignant narcissist, because they probably will have some antisocial traits going on and some Machiavellian going on as well. So whenever you hear yourself say, oh, they would never, check it before you wreck it. That's all I got to say. It's like, how old are you? How old is that part of you going, they would never, how old are you? Who are you trying to appease? Because remember, our inner children side with the aggressor in a ego defense mechanism. So you've got to be very, very, very careful of that. When you hear, oh, they would never, how old are you? Who are you trying to appease, or who are you trying to defend, and why? So let me go through the list of books, then I'm going to hit the questions. Inside the Criminal Mind by Stanton E. Samnow, PhD. Fantastic. I love him because he basically calls out all of the psychologists that are like, oh, poor them. It was their upbringing. And he's like, nope, it's genetics. And I'm like, I love you. And he's like, it's a choice. They are choosing. They can stop. Criminals stop. There are serial killers that stop for years. That tells me there's no impulse there. There's not an impulse problem. They stop for years and then start up again. It's because now they feel safe and they're thinking that they're untouchable. So excellent book. The Disease to Please, Harriet Breaker. Facing Codependency by Pia Melody. Inner Child Workbook, Catherine Taylor, or Regaining Your Inner Child by Lucia Cappuccioni. CPTSD from Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker. Get those books, read them. The Self-Esteem Workbook by Glenn Schiraldi. Once you understand your own worth, you're not going to be dealing with denial. You're going to be like, nope, it is what it is. I am worth more. No excuses. Criminals love to give excuses, but they only give excuses when they're caught. They only rationalize when they're caught. They don't do it before. So, all right, let's hit the questions. All right. Can a dark triad be delusional in thinking that they are in full control and admired by all? Yes. My narcissistic mom thought she was worshipped by others, but everyone avoided her and she had no control at all. Yeah, absolutely. That's not really so much a delusion as it is an ego defense. So delusions, where is my DSM-5? Because that has come up recently. Delusional. So delusions are things that are possible, okay, but improbable. Possible, but improbable. And they are convinced of this possibility, and you cannot convince them otherwise. It is deeply held delusion. If I could find that, that would make me so happy. You know what? Let me do another video on delusions. So let me do that this week. Let me answer that on delusions. I am going to answer your question, but let me do an in-depth one on delusions, because they have this story that they tell themselves that they are loved and their ego can't handle it. I remember so many times my mom saying that my dad couldn't go to therapy or wouldn't stay in therapy because he couldn't deal with what he did. I think that's partially true, but I don't think it's that he couldn't deal with what he did. He couldn't stand somebody else knowing what he did. So, is it delusional? Not really, because usually the delusions. So there's psychotic delusions. There's ideas of reference. There's idea of autoeroticism. No, not autoeroticism. Eroticism. So, like, okay, for example, a delusion would be thinking that a television star is giving you a secret message because they're wearing a red sweater. That's delusional. Okay. Thinking that everybody loves them, that's their ego. That is just the way narcissists think. They really, truly think everybody loves them. Not once do they ever, go inside and go, what is my part in this? How do people really feel about me? How do I feel about me? What's going on? They don't. And they honestly think that they're worshiped. It's just the craziest thing. My dad did. My dad thought he was the greatest dad ever. And I'm just like, you are never going to win Dad of the Year award. Sorry. Because everybody avoided him too. So let me do another video on delusions specifically so I can get you the difference between the narcissists. I'm great, I'm fabulous, I'm this, I'm that. And that's their ego. That's what they tell themselves. But a delusion is more, a little more psychotic, I think. So let's talk about that. Let's do that on Monday. I will do a whole video on that on Monday. So watch for that. Yeah, and they have no control at all, but they tell themselves they do, because it feeds their ego. Okay, question. How can they lie so constantly? Is it because they draw energy from gaslighting others nonstop? Yes, and also it's a habit. They start when they're young, and they lie in part because it's a, can I get away with it? Ooh, is somebody going to notice? Ooh, am I going to get caught? Ooh, it is. They want to see how far they can push the envelope. And they're also judging to see how much they can get away with. Is this person super gullible? Is this person going to believe everything that they say? That's kind of what they do. So it becomes a habit. It's enjoyable. They get something out of it. Okay. They very rarely get caught because they're so convincing. And they do it like all the time. It just flies off their tongue. It's really frightening to watch a pathological liar, which is most dark triads, just lie for no reason. They just do it to see if they can get away with it. Again, they're thinking they're smarter than everybody else. They're smarter than the therapists. They're smarter than the judges. They're smarter than the cops. They're smarter than the attorneys. They do it for fun. That's the best explanation I can give you. What part does fetal alcohol spectrum disorder have in all of this? I'm asking because I raised my sister's adopted son from the ages of 16 to 18. He had narcissistic symptoms I've seen in other narcissists I've had relationship with. So fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, I should probably do another one on that. So that'll be Wednesdays. The brain is damaged. There's a lot of brain damage. So a person that has any sort of brain damage is going to have, their amygdala is going to be affected, which has to do with fear, being fearful or not fearful. Their frontal lobe is going to be affected, which is going to have to do with your sensor, that part of your brain that goes, probably not a good idea to rob Taco Bell at high noon, that kind of thing. So they have impaired thinking, and impaired fear responses, impaired conscious, like, do they have a conscience? A lot of criminals in this book don't, because they have no empathy. What's in it for me? What's being empathic going to do for me? That kind of thing. With fetal alcohol syndrome, if there's brain damage, which there is, those are all going to be impaired. Now, that does not make them narcissistic. It makes them have brain damage, fetal alcohol syndrome. So let me do a video on Wednesday about fetal alcohol syndrome so I can give you the whole thing, because it's going to take a whole video. Trust me on that one. So there is that. Hold on. Do we have one more? Why do they copy the behavior and stories from human people? Why do they try to pretend they're human? When they pretend to be a friend, are they just gathering information to copy us? Well, yes. So abusers are notorious. Psychopaths are notorious, and narcissists are notorious for mining for information. Tell me all about you. Tell me all about this. Tell me. Now, they do it for that reason, to find something that they can use against you later. Okay. Mimicking your experience, your stories. I find that dark triads do that because they have no sense of self. And they very mistakenly think that if they copy the way you dress and copy your stories and copy your speech patterns and copy what you do, like I've seen narcissists take over a spouse's hobby. So the spouse will be a painter, and the narcissist will suddenly decide that they are the painter and they'll take over the hobby, and it'll be a competition because they want to become the spouse. Because the spouse, generally, what narcissists look for in a target of abuse is somebody who's human, somebody who's kind, somebody who has empathy, somebody who has compassion, somebody who is loving and has laughter and joy. And then they set about to destroy all of that because they're jackwagons. Because they can't have it. Once they realize that they're not going to suddenly, by osmosis, become all of those wonderful traits, they get angry at the target of abuse and then start the devalue and discard. And then they hate them for us loving them because, well, you're stupid. How, you didn't give me what I wanted. That's a lot of what they think. I know, it's crazy. That's why I'm saying get out, stay out, get away from them. You cannot fix them because you did not break them. It is not your job. There is not a psychologist on the face of the planet that can make those jackwagons stay healthy. They don't. Even Frank Anderson talked about that. He's like, well, there's some evidence that they can change for a while. And I'm like, there's the important part, for a while. They change as long as it benefits them. And as soon as the eyes are off of them, they go right back to their old behavior. You betcha. So let me make sure I answered that question. They pretend to be human because that's the wolf in sheep's clothing. What's the best way to get close to your target of abuse? Pretend to be them. Pretend to have the same moral compass. Pretend to have the same ambitions. Pretend to have the same likes. Pretend to have the same dislikes. You pretend to have emotions. You pretend to get close to the target of abuse so that they can get their hooks in you and drag you in, and then it's too late. That's why they do what they do. That's what psychopaths do. Oh, you betcha. Yeah, that's what dark triads do. So I hope this answered the question as to why you must get rid of the denial. It is going to get you killed. It is, or harmed at the very least. It's really important to understand narcissists are criminals that just haven't been caught yet. This is a fabulous book. I highly recommend it, Inside the Criminal Mind by Stanton E. Samnow, PhD. It was wonderful because it basically said everything I already kind of figured out, but it's nice to hear it from a PhD. So anyway, they are criminals. They just haven't been caught yet. They haven't done something that will break a law yet. But as they slide down the spectrum, as they become more and more malignant, as they start overlapping the antisocial Machiavellianism narcissist, they will eventually, those are the ones that become stalkers. Those are the ones that do the harm. Those are the ones that do domestic violence. Those are the ones that kill pets. Those are the ones that fill in the blank. Eventually they do something egregious enough to get caught if they are down the line far enough. If they've just got traits of, no, they'll manage to skate on by. So anyway, that is a dark triad. That is the criminal thinking that they have. And you cannot make excuses for them. You cannot deny it. You're going to get yourself killed. So if they are doing any of the things that we talked about, leave, get out, save yourself, save your kids. Do not suffer from here's a delusion. Well, but the kids need their parent. No, they do not. If your spouse, male or female, is a dark triad, those kids absolutely do not need them. Do not force visitation. If the dark triad wants nothing to do with them, consider yourself lucky. Seriously, that best case scenario, because you do not want that person involved in their lives. They will do everything they can to destroy that kid, to destroy you, if you let them. So there it is. All right. Okay. Next week, all connected here. Okay. So first of all, on Monday and Tuesday, I'm going to be talking about delusional thinking, delusions. On Wednesday, sorry, not Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm going to be talking about fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. So you guys understand what that is and the difference between narcissism and that. Two different things. One is brain damage, one is a choice. Next week, we are going to be talking about the criminal ways that narcissists, dark triads, try to keep you in the relationship using bribery and extortion. So we're going to talk about all that fun stuff. All right. That is it. You guys have a great week. Please take very good care of yourselves. Please check it before you wreck it. Do not get into denial. Do not make excuses or rationalizations or justifications for them because they are basically, evil. So there it is. All right. Drink plenty of water. Take good care of yourselves. Eat as healthily as you can. Get some sunshine. Go out walking. Have a great week. And I will talk to you next week about extortion and bribery. Talk to you then. Bye.